So we're saying that people, getting off the non-dual high horse and saying that everything is love and love is all that is, and I've discovered that, and therefore, enlightenment is all there is, or whatever. And then we say the war is also love, and blah 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 blah. I mean, it's true that the source of everything is love. There's no other source, but a war is a lack of love. That's why a war is created, from a lack of love. So to say it's love is kind of like, it's to not want to look at what we can actually do for the world, what we can actually do. War isn't natural. Terror isn't natural. Lack, any form of lacking whatsoever, isn't natural. That's not our nature. So to just bypass that and call that love is a kind of a weird thing. Um, and maybe that's because of other concepts that we have, like there is no me, so who's going to do anything about anything, right? Or there is no doer, or things like that. But that's a misuse of the concepts, because what you're doing if you do that is you're depriving yourself of the ability to experience. That's the key word. Experience love, experience God, not just try to sort of look at everything and say, well, that's love and that's love. Oh, he's abusing me. Well, that's love too, right? It doesn't, it's absurd. Okay. So today, what we're going to go into is we're actually starting a mini series. It's okay if people are going to join along the way without being present every time. Also, they can watch the recordings, but I think you would obviously benefit the most by joining every week right now for a period of time. But even if you don't, each satsang in itself will give you a lot of clarity. So what we're talking about is this mini series is called The Face of Freedom. Now, what it means is with the face of freedom is to try to give us a picture right now of what freedom actually looks like. What is if you looked at the face of freedom, what face would you see? And that's what we're going to be talking about. And one of the things that is really important to begin with is an idea that you probably haven't heard before, and it's going to sound very different, maybe really odd, but try to take it in. That what you are, we always say what you are is the self. We say what you are is spirit, what you are is love, all that kind of stuff. Try to think about for a second that what you are is a combination of qualities, right? Let's say, for example, let's look at love as a quality, anger as a quality, humility as a quality, meanness or brutality as a quality, compassion as a quality. And you either have more or less of each quality. You might have a very balanced quality of compassion, or maybe your compassion is imbalanced and you tend more towards either the sacrificing side, where you're too merciful, too soft, or you tend towards the other side, where you're a bit too strong, too cruel, too hard and harsh. So whether you're balanced or not balanced in that quality, it comes out. What you are really is these qualities, and the way that you express yourself is whether these qualities are balanced. So I know this might sound a bit weird for a second, but you'll see as we get into it more and more, that to give love, which is what this is all about. We're not, like I said, we're not just going to call everything love and conceptually be happy with that. Everything's love. It doesn't help anybody. We want the experience of it. We want to, and not only do we want the experience of it, but if you really, really are concerned with giving love, that means that you are here because you're the salvation of the world. That's not to inflate your ego. It's because love is what will save the world. As cliche as it sounds, love has always been the answer. Love is still the answer. And we have to do it. We don't have to just talk about it, listen to videos about it, read about it. We have to live it. We have to express it. We have to be it. We have to be the answer. If the problem is lack of love, what's the answer? Love, right? Yeah. So now we want to know what it is to give love, because let's say I'm a parent and my child is behaving like really insanely. And my idea of love is, well, you got to give the kid freedom. You got to let them have their own way. That might be my idea of love, but it's probably not actual love. A lot of times in those kinds of situations, what the child is actually asking for is, show me some boundaries. Show me the parameters. Guide me a little bit. But they don't ask it like a grown-up in such a clear way, right? They might just misbehave or something like that. And then you have to be able to sense what's actually needed in the situation, right? So if you're too soft, like I said, you're not actually loving the child. You're not helping them. It could also be with a puppy, a dog, whatever. They might need certain boundaries. And on the other hand, there might be situations where you think it's really loving to be a bit firm, but maybe you're too firm and it's creating resistance in the other. They're not opening up to you more. They're wanting to go away from you. They're scared of you. So what is love? How do we love? How do we know where the balance lies exactly? This is what this mini series is going to be about. To know where the balance lies, to know how to love actually, right? And by the way, certain religions were created exactly for that purpose. We have a very arrogant and judgmental view of religions oftentimes. Sometimes it's for a good reason, but a lot of times it's just our own ignorance, because a lot of religions, what they're trying to do, I can speak about Judaism, for example. So what it's trying to do is give you a code of behavior so that you will know what love is and what it isn't. So when we say things like do unto others as they would have them do unto you, that's a guideline for how to be loving. And when you look at certain rituals within, since I'm talking about Judaism as an example, let's say certain rituals within Judaism, and they also exist within Buddhism, for example, they seem to us like they're just meaningless things, and maybe they've been distorted through the ages that you need to do these things or you'll go to hell or whatever. But really what they've been given as energetic rituals to help people stay in the commandment, love thy neighbor as yourself, to help them stay in balance and in love. That's really the original purpose of a lot of religious rituals, which then became distorted. So what I'm saying is, the teaching has always been, from the dawn of wisdom, to show people how to behave in the sense of how to love. What we've gotten in today's spirituality and the arrogance of today's spiritual community, which thinks it's so much better than religion and so much more advanced and so much more ahead and blah, 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 is that we have a little bit of ignorance as to basically rising up to the level of concepts and talking about everything very conceptually and all the good sounding things. But when it comes to actually dealing with challenging situations in our lives, those concepts leave us high and dry, meaning they don't support us. They don't actually help us. They don't give us wisdom. They don't give us knowledge. What do I do in this kind of a situation? This is a weird situation. There's no book that's telling me to be loving. It's telling me to be forgiving. It's not, there are some cases where if you're a Course in Miracles student and somebody is taking advantage of you and you choose forgiveness instead of boundary, you can always forgive in your heart, always do that. But externally, the behavior might need to be a boundary. The external behavior might need to be, I need to take you to court. That could be a loving external behavior. And if we're just in the concepts all the time of love and forgiveness and this and that, it's not loving thy neighbor and yourself, which is what we spoke about last time. Love your neighbor and yourself. The love has to include you, and that sometimes means that you will have to put a boundary or take a certain firm action that the spiritual community will consider unloving, but it's not really unloving. We want to take a real look at what is loving and what isn't. All right. So that's the introduction out of the way, and now we can really get down to business. And so let's think of ourselves for a moment as a combination of qualities. And when our qualities are in balance, what do we feel? We feel a connection to God. We feel a connection to love. The love flows without any resistance, no problems. The channels are open. And as the love flows through us into the world, it elevates the whole world. It lifts it all up. And this is why I said The people who are willing to do this are the ones who will save the world. Yeah. So now when your traits or qualities are out of balance, what that means is that you're enslaved to them. You're literally, if you're let's say, too much giving into pity, the quality of pity, of like believing in, you know how like when a kid falls and then the parent goes like, like something terrible happened, and then the kid learns from that, oh my gosh, something terrible happened, and then, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to cry, right? And then they learn how to pity themselves throughout their entire lives. They learn how, like, when something bad happens, where is that person who will go, poor you? You know, they're looking for that. And when they don't get that, they get angry or feel really victimized or whatever. So, so when we have too much of that, you can look at it in the way that you're enslaved to pity. You're enslaved by it. It's a pattern that's running you. So what we want to do is we want to balance all the traits. And when all the traits are balanced, what it actually means is spiritual health, mental health, emotional health, and physical health. Because the body is a result, it's an effect, not a cause. So when everything is healthy spiritually and it trickles down to the mental, to the emotional, eventually it'll trickle down to the physical, and you'll find yourself healing physically. So these teachings are a healing. Yeah. And what we're going to talk about today, there's all kinds of qualities. That quality we're going to focus on today is the most important one of them all. If you have this one balanced, most likely all the rest are pretty much in tune. So another way to that term in tune is another way to sort of think of all of this is you're a guitar and you're made out of string. You got strings, right? And your strings are either in tune or not. In tune with what? In tune with love. They're either in tune with love or they're out of tune with love. And it's that simple. So why can't I just do that? Interesting. I'm going to ask you about certain traits, and I want you to tell me if they're good or bad. You can unmute yourself, or you can just write in the chat. And these are the traits, for example, that I mentioned in the promo post for this event. So let's take, for example, cruelty. Is cruelty a good or bad trait? Bad. What does everybody say? Bad. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. And what about humility? Connor says out of tune about cruelty. Okay. Humility, good? In tune. Okay. And anybody else have another thought about humility? No. What about pride? What do you say? Good or bad? Should we keep it or get rid of it?
I feel like pride is a good thing in some situations as long as it's not like controlling you.
Okay. So it could be good or it could be bad. So it depends on the balance of it, maybe. Okay. All right. What about um happiness? Good or bad? Yay. Everybody's like, yay. Okay. So why am I asking you these things? Okay, Claudia said about the previous one depends. That's interesting. And Haley said pride could be good, could be bad, depends also in a way. So this is the point I want to make with you. Here's an example. If I'm cutting through someone's flesh, is that good or bad? I know it's a weird question. Go with me for a second. Sadie goes, mate, I don't know. What are we saying?
Like if you're cutting out,
Go ahead, Sadie.
like if you're cutting out something that needs to be cut out, it could be good. But if you're trying to cause harm, you know.
Smart. So if it's like a surgery and I'm a surgeon, I could be cutting flesh, but I'm doing something good, right? But if I just tell you out of context, I'm going to cut your flesh or something, it sounds terrible. It sounds cruel, right? So what we want to look at is it's not that that a trait is necessarily good or bad, keep or get rid of, but it really what matters the most is the purpose for which you're using it for. So if my pride, let's take, for example, pride, if my pride is because I've had a lot of accomplishments and I think I'm better than you, that's not loving, is it? But if I am so lacking in pride that I humiliate myself, I put myself down, that's not good either, right? So the qualities we'll be talking about are qualities that are not get rid of or keep, good or bad. That was a trick question, I'll be honest with you. It's a question of balance, balancing the traits. And you know what, one of the things that you want to follow to always know whether you're balanced in a certain trait is what you're using it for. For example, anger. If I need to tell the dog to not do something, I have to exhibit firmness, maybe a certain degree of anger. I don't actually have to feel angry, but I have to play as if, because that's how you're going to see that I'm serious about this. I mean it. Don't play with me. I mean this, right? I don't have to really like be mean inside, but I have to convey the firmness of it, right? So even anger is not necessarily always bad. Yeah. So this is the traits that we're going to look into.
I have a question.
Yes, please, Claudia.
So I see in social justice issues, a lot of individuals kind of are motivated by a little bit of anger, and I always question if that's toxic. But do you think like, but you're saying not feeling the anger, but at the same time, how do you feel about people that it does wonderful things in the community, but a little bit of anger motivates them to pursue?
Well, we'll have a whole satsang about anger. Like it's an entire topic. But generally speaking, you never want to actually feel it. You might need to exhibit it, but you don't need to actually ever feel it, because the only times where I say it's good to feel anger is when you are 100% making sure you're not allowing it to turn into blame, which is really hard for most humans. There's moments where anger wells up in you and it's just there to tell you, hey man, you need to take a certain action or to set a boundary or something needs to happen. But if that energy keeps driving you from a place of an against energy, I'm against you, that's not connecting to God. That's not balance, right? You don't want to be against anyone. So learning how to use anger correctly is a whole art form. Yeah.
For me, honor and pride are a little bit different. So I find that I can honor myself without ever being prideful. And in doing so, I'm able to be
Right.
self-respecting, set boundaries, but I'm not keeping score.
Yes. Beautiful, Connor. Exactly. So by the way, what we're going to be learning, this is for life. I'll just tell you, this is like the practice that we want to do. And I'll remind you hopefully at the end as well. This is something that I do in my life on rinse and repeat. This isn't something I learn once, apply once, and I'm done. Yeah, I always see, oh my gosh, well, there's another layer. There's, I could be more balanced in that regard. I could be more balanced in that regard. So this is becoming really a student of love for life, but it's not, there's no endpoint that you need to necessarily look for. It's that the more you give this love, the more you're balanced, the more it flows through you seamlessly. And the more you understand how to deal with challenging situations, then the better the more in heaven you are, right where you are, right where you stand, the more in heaven you are right here, right now, not later. So, and you can, because God's love and light are infinite, you can experience more of it and more of it and more of it and more of it, right? So it's not necessarily, this isn't about looking for an end. Like we come from paths where we're seeking enlightenment. We think we'll have this event where everything ends and you'll have signposts, big lampposts on the way where you had huge aha moments. They might be very simple. They don't need to necessarily be, you know, fireworks and stuff. You'll have that. But if you think there's a final point, I don't know where that point is. I haven't found one like that. So I know that there's a path, and that there's a deepening of the path that you can deepen infinitely. You can look at it as deepening, or you can look at it as ascending also. There's no end point to it. So this is already the beginning of humility, is to understand that you're a student for life. There isn't going to be a point where you really say, you know, I know it all, or I've mastered it, you know, final, like completely. Because the moment you say that, you'll be sent a new challenge to show you, oh, there's something you don't know yet. So let's be humble about that. Okay, so all the qualities that I mentioned, we actually need them, but we need to balance them, because even happiness can be inappropriate sometimes. If I'm going through a terrible time right now, for example, and I'm down and everything, and you're coming to me with like maximum happiness, like so happy, it might make me feel very lonely and isolated, like you're not really feeling me, seeing me. It's like just inappropriate for me. Like, why? Maybe you can come and meet me for a second, or at least be gentler, and don't like parade your happiness. Like, an easier example to make this like more easy to understand is like, if I'm mourning, somebody close to me has passed away, and you're parading happiness next to me, it's a little insensitive, right? Am I right, or am I off? Yeah. So you see what I mean? Everything needs to be in balance.